I'm Donna Reed, and this is Donna Reed Talks Voice. And we're going to have a little bit of discussion with two of my students who I actually just worked with now. And we're going to discuss what went on, their impressions, etc. So, do we all want to go around and introduce ourselves? Nellie, I'll start with my fabulous, amazing, I don't even have enough words to say what Nellie Beavers is. She is all around genius in everything she does, and I love her to death. So
Uh,
that's Nellie Beavers.
hello. I'm Nellie Beavers, like Donna said. I do a lot of the producing for Donna Reed Talks Voice. I do the editing for the videos and all kinds of stuff, social media and all that. And it's just great to be here. And I'm going to be hosting the discussion. And I've been watching the 2 episodes prior to this. We worked with Jana and Heidi, and we asked them to stick around after their lessons to have this discussion. So we'll be talking about those 2 episodes. So if you haven't seen them yet, check them out, or keep watching this and then go check them out. However you'd like to do it, it's the internet. You can do whatever you want. But Heidi, I'll pass it to you. Why don't you go ahead and do a very quick intro one more time for us,
Sure.
and then we'll go to Hannah.
Yep. So hi, my name's Heidi Porcini. I'm currently living in Hamilton, Ontario, and I teach voice to young children, specifically how to sing in tune.
Great.
Yeah.
And Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Martinez. I'm a singer, actor, and voiceover, and I'm currently living in Philadelphia.
Fantastic. Well, so we just had both of your lessons for the channel, and one of the things that I was noticing as I was watching was, Donna, you were talking about getting the smooth register balance. Can you explain to the listeners and to us in a more detailed view about what register balance is, and where the passaggio sits and what all of that means to lay people?
Sure. We all know that we basically have these two voices, right? We've got this upper voice and this lower voice. Hoo, 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 upper voice, lower voice, right? Traditionally, for the female voice, the upper voice has been called a head voice. For the male voice, the upper voice has been called a falsetto. The lower voice in both cases has been called a chest voice. So you've got these two basic sounds that we have. They're traditionally called those voices from, I don't know, 14, whatever, maybe even before. You could Google it. So in getting these two voices together, what happens is that the lower voice, the chest voice, has thicker vocal cords. The upper voice, that head voice, has thinner vocal cords. How do you make the transition from thicker vocal cords to thinner vocal cords? That's what the quote unquote smoothness is. Now, in order to make that smooth transition from lower to higher, from higher to lower, one has to have the freedom and flexibility of not just the vocal cords themselves, but all of the muscles that bring the vocal cords together. So all of those muscles that bring the cords together, that occlude them, that break them, take them apart, that make them vibrate, that elongate them, all of the interplay with those two muscles has to be very smooth for one to be able to make a smooth transition from lower to higher. As I explained in one of the lessons we did earlier, when you're in the lower pitches, all of the body of the vocal cord is vibrating like that, right? The whole body, you could see the undulation. When you get to that passaggio area, less and less of the body of the vocal cord vibrates, and then it just vibrates on the edge. That's why it's tricky. How do you make that transition from ever so slightly going from there to the edge without it just going broom to the edge where you hear that big break?
Hmm.
I guess a similar analogy would be in dance when, let's say, a dancer has to do this with their leg, though I can't do that with my leg, but they have to do it from the floor very slowly, up. You know, one can do this da, 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 and go up, but how do you get that transition? Again, it's getting the muscles to work in a much more efficient way and a very precise way, going from bottom to top. That's what we do when we teach the voice to do that. Now, what that makes me bring in something else that I love to say that people don't know about the vocal mechanism. All of these muscles I'm talking about are involuntary. So how do we make this happen? We can't voluntarily make it happen. We can't make our cricothyroid muscles stretch the vocal cords the way they need to. We can't make the, I believe it's the lateral cricoretinoids that bring the vocal, the vocalis muscle that brings it. We can't physically make that happen. There are no nerve endings in there. So we have to approach it in a way that indirectly affects these vocal muscles so that they can make that smooth transition. Then what the singer has to do is the singer has to get a sense of, oh, I see what I'm doing this, or it kind of feels like this, or it kind of feels like that. It's not a placement thing, but it's kind of a self-awareness thing. Oh, I see, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. One of the things I have people become more aware of, is what is the cavity doing on the inside? That's going to make a difference how you make the transition from the bottom to the top. Are you singing ah 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 ah? Are you singing Are you singing ah 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 ah? Well, that's going to make a difference. If your voice wants to go ah, you're not going to get a smooth scale because your ahs are all over the place. So again, being aware of that, and being aware of then what feels like it's shutting down, which is not going to work for you, and what feels like it's not shutting down. And again, how do you approach it? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Do you have your throat there? Your
I do. Yes,
Can
I
you
do.
show it to us?
Yes, sure. Excuse me. Ta-da! Here's a little baby larynx, right? Now, the real larynx is about that big. So obviously it's a big larynx. Now, the most important muscle, this little guy right here, it's called the cricothyroid muscle. It pulls this. Now, this is a side view. Side view, Adam's apple, right? Side view, this pulls this thyroid cartilage forward and down. And let me show you. Hold on a sec. This guy comes apart.
Oh,
Vocal cord. That's the other side. So like that. So that's where the vocal cords are, right behind that little notch there, right behind the Adam's apple, right? And then this little muscle should pull this down this way to stretch these little vocal cords to make higher pitches. Now, what happens with most people is it does this, zoop, and it goes up, and that's where the constriction comes in. The Adam's apple goes up, that goes up. If you're trying to make a smooth transition from the bottom to the top, and you're going from chest voice to head voice, and this guy is going up, you're not going to get a smooth transition unless you constrict. Now, you can fake a smooth transition by constricting and just making something tight to just make whatever sound you want to come out, right? Now, all of these muscles, again, that I'm talking about, they're all involuntary. So we have to approach it on a different basis. Do we set up the conditions to get those muscles to go where we want them to go? And just very quickly, because this is really important, if you have an oo vowel, it's going to thin the vocal cords. You're going to get more head voice going with that because that wants thinner vocal cords. If you have an ah vowel, that's going to thicken the vocal cords because that gives you more chest voice, thicker vocal cords. If you are higher, obviously the vocal cords are thinner for higher pitches. If you're lower, and that's more head voice. If you're lower in pitch, you're going to have thicker vocal cords, more chest voice. If you have louder sound, again, vocal cords are going to get thicker. You're going to have more chest voice. Softer sound, vocal cords are thinner. You're going to get more head voice. Now, those are the basics. It's a lot more complicated with all of the movements than that. But those are the basics, and those are the tools that one can use. So if you want to get a smooth scale and you're going from an ah chest voice to an ah head voice, if there's too much ah on the bottom and you want a smooth scale to the top, if you don't modify that ah on the top, it's going to go ah, 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 ooh, ooh, and it's going to do something weird. So that's where you play with the vowel. Same with the oo. If you take the oo down and then the oo goes ooh, and it doesn't go open up to an ah, you're not going to get that head voice into the chest voice. Make sense?
Yeah. Cool. So my next question is for each of us, and we'll go around the room, as it were. where are you most comfortable singing, and where do you find that you need to have, I want to say, the most brain power while you're singing the thing? I'll go first. I prefer to belt if I can. Given the option, that is my default, including when I speak. And and I think that, Donna, what would you say? Like FF sharp G for me is where I hit my passaggio.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed what you were talking about, Donna, about with the larynx, and the vocal cords, and how they're sitting and all that stuff. And I think it was for me. This is I do a lot of like mental stuff, so I don't even really know what's happening there. But when I became aware, and I actually didn't know this, and who would know if you haven't actually seen it, right? Because we don't see. But when became aware that our vocal cords actually sit like this and not like this, right? That changed everything for me. And it was actually Sue Conley that talked to me about that. She's like, "Oh, did you know your vocal cords actually sit like front to back, not up and down?" And that, yeah, again, that changed everything. So when I think about when I'm going from a lower note to a higher note, and I think about my vocal cords just zipping up this way, not this way, it just everything kind of molds to that to accommodate for that in a way. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So that's all that I mean, I can't say anything beyond that because it's all just kind of brain stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a great segue for the next question I have. But first, I want to let everybody else finish, and then we're gonna head back to that. Hannah, how about you? Where are you comfortable singing? Where do you have to think about it? Where does it sit for you?
With me, it's weird because all my entire life, all I wanted to be was I think maybe a bass, and I'm a soprano. So when I sing the high notes, they just come easier, but I enjoy singing more in my middle range. Um, and then I find that I have to work harder and not pushing. And I just kind of think throughout because my default is to push. And I've always was like, if you work harder, you get better results, right? And I've had to change that approach. And one of the things that was so incredibly amazing from taking lessons with Donna has always been that everything that works for the voice works for life. It's like it's a very spiritual and sacred experience to take class with Donna because like for me learning not to push, I've completely taken that into my everyday life and learned to just surrender to the process, and in that surrender there's so much beauty, and then you kind of allow the divine, you know, to flow through you, and you're just able to just open your mouth, or you just open through, you're just going through life being a channel instead of being at you know, pushing through things, and just becomes, it goes from pushing to allowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I just go into a total surrender mode, then there's no thinking, then there's nothing but just becoming a channel and just fully opening up to whatever magic decides to flow that day. And it's different in each moment. And there's no controlling it, and then there's no, the pushing goes away, and it's just, I found that in life, that I just surrender to the moment, surrender to what is, and then the magic happens.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. 100%. Donna, what about you? Where do you sing, where do you prefer to sing? Where do you like, where does your voice prefer that you sing versus your head?
I prefer classical music.
Mhm.
I love teaching the belt, and I love me my Broadway stuff. But that's not what my voice does. That's not what I sing. I sing classically. Um, like you, the passaggio maybe, E flat, E. I'll even gather it starts a little earlier. Being a mezzo soprano, it starts kind of D, E flat, E.
Mhm.
That's tricky. That's my tricky area, because literally the notes are, I mean, here they are, right? La, 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 la. I could do that la 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 la. But if I'm singing for real, then I can't do it like that. So my challenge in singing is giving the right amount of energy in that area, in that tricky passaggio area. That's my big challenge. So the lower passaggio, going from the chest voice to the head voice there, I don't even think it's a piece of cake. It's such a piece of cake. And for a lot of my Broadway people, that's easy because they bring the chest voice straight up, right past up the F, F sharp, G, etc., which is fine.
Mhm.
That's more the Broadway sound. Their passaggio area then would be B flat, B, C. So that's a whole different ball game there. Now my classical people, they have a harder time in that lower, the what they call the first passaggio, E flat, E, F down there around the middle C, because what happens with classical people is they bring that head voice actually too low, and they don't let the chest voice come in. So that makes that passaggio difficult for them, because they get to an F, E, E flat, D, and it starts to sound weak.
Mhm.
And they don't want to add the chest voice, and then they try to push on the head voice side, and then that doesn't work. Now my voice doesn't do that because I mix it in such a way that it's like easy peasy, whatever.
Mhm.
And my challenge, personal challenge, as I said, is the upper passaggio, where I have to give enough energy. But it's interesting how, depending on the style of music, people have different passaggios and different areas that are tricky.
Mhm. I think you just answered this in your question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. When when you have to be careful about the energy that you give, do you mean that you have to give more energy than you think you do, or less?
More. For me, it's
More.
more. It's
Okay,
way more energy than I think I need,
I see.
because it's so easy. Because I can go la, 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 fine. But if it's loud, and if I'm doing something for real, I need way more energy than that. Because if I do it with that kind of energy up there, it shuts right down. I feel it.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, that's
Ooh.
tight. That's not right.
Yeah,
That's
and
not
like
right.
after you're like, oh,
It's like,
oh,
no,
oh.
that wasn't good. No.
Great. The next question I have actually comes back to now. Thankfully, Heidi mentioned it also, because Hannah definitely mentioned it, which is having your self-awareness, your awareness within your rehearsals, within your performances, but also having the little like self-doubt in your brain. And how do you navigate, because I know, Donna, you always say practice makes permanent,
Yeah,
right?
I'm quoting Cornelius. He said, practice makes permanent, not perfect. So if you're
Right.
not practicing the right thing, you're going to make something permanent that shouldn't be there.
Right. So when you're rehearsing and you're not with someone, right? Because if we're with you and we're rehearsing, then you're like, right? But if we're by ourselves, how do we develop a skill of self awareness and listening when we're rehearsing by ourselves?
Okay, one of the things that I tell my students is, when you are just learning the music, you're learning music, you have to learn music. You don't have to sing it full out every time you're learning it. You could sing it down the octave. If it's easy and not constrictive in your throat, you could sing it half voice. You don't have to do the belty thing. Now, if it's high, you don't want to sing it half voice, sing it down the octave. Sing it where it's easy, learn it so that you learn the notes and the rhythms, because one of the most difficult things on the voice is to sing something you don't know. Because if you don't know what you're singing, you're not sure about the notes, I'll tell you, you're going to get constriction right away. Because you kind of know where you're going, and you kind of know it's up there somewhere, and then you kind of know it's down there, and you don't know where it is, and you're not going to remember to breathe because you're worried about the notes and the rhythms and all of that. So learn the music separately from singing it out loud all the time.
Mm.
One. And then two, especially if you have to get, let's say, a mixy belt, or let's say you have to get just the right sound in something. I tell people to record it, because what happens, especially with belting, like we saw with Heidi's lesson, you're belting, one is belting, they don't think they're belting. Well, that feels like a head voice. That's not belting. So then they push on more chest voice. But if they were to listen back to an objective recording, they'd say, "Oh, wait a minute, that kind of sounds belty." Yeah, it sounds belty. It doesn't feel belty on the inside. Therefore, you don't think it's belty. But when you listen to it objectively, you could say, "Oh, wait a minute, that actually does sound belty." So that's an important tool right there. Another thing, first and foremost, always, is it comfortable in the throat? In that, is it tight? Is it not tight? If it's tight and it sounds amazing, forget it. That's not good. Now, if it doesn't sound, let's say, 100% amazing, and it's not tight in your throat, well, you know what? Give yourself a break. Just let it be free.
Yeah.
Does that help with the answering of
Yeah.
that? It's
Yeah.
hard to be objective when you're practicing and when you're by yourself. And when you listen, and I do the same thing with myself, and I hear pretty well. I pretty much know what I'm doing. But sometimes I'm like, not sure about that. I will record it, I will listen back, and I'll say, yeah, that sounded like what I thought. Or I'll listen back and say, nope, that's not what I wanted. Nope, I'm going to do that one again. So that tool is helpful.
Yeah. I love a good old recording.
I have a tool that I wanted to implement. I always would tell Donna that I wanted to clone her and make a pocket Donna that I could.
That would be great.
Everyone needs a pocket Donna. She's already pretty small. It wouldn't take much to bring her down.
I don't know.
Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add to that, as far as how you deal with rehearsal and fighting the little demon guys in your head, or just garnering your own self-awareness?
Yeah, well, I just agree with everything that Donna, that you were saying about that. And I just had to clear off about 1,000 little recordings on my phone because it was using up space. But yeah, I record all the time, over and over and over and over again until it sounds like, yeah, what I want to hear. And and
Could I interrupt? Could I ask you,
yeah.
do you notice when you do that, that it didn't or did sound the way it sounded in your head when you first did it without listening to the recording?
Say that again. That it did.
So when you listen to the recording,
Yeah.
because you practice and you listen to the recording back, does it sound like you thought it was going to sound, or does it not sound like you thought it was going to sound?
Well, oh, you mean like when I sang it first sang it without listening to the recording?
Yes.
Well, it depends. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Usually it doesn't. That's why I just keep over and over again and tweaking here and there, just small, whether it's more breath, whether it's, easing up or giving more, right? Like it's just always just tweaking. And then also, too, I find that when there's that resonance in the mouth, that resonance, almost like I was feeling when we were doing the exercise, when we were doing the gluey, 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 that one.
Uh-huh.
I felt all this resonance in the mouth, like almost like this pure vibration that was just really easy and nothing stuck. And so when I feel that, that's is usually, well, that's perfect and it sounds great to me.
For me, what's happening through the years as I do this sound healing, which is so freeing because I don't have to follow any patterns. I'm not doing any particular melodies. I'm just allowing whatever melody shows up in the moment. But I always hear myself back in the meditations. I hear it back and see, Oh, like especially like my mom is a participant in my sound healings a lot, and she'll tell me, "Oh my God, you sounded great today." Especially on those days, I'll go back and hear myself back and see, is it really, does it feel good? And I'm beginning to, for the first time ever, actually enjoy the sound of my voice, which I never used to. I was like, I always thought I broke people's ears. So now I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, I like that. Or I enjoyed that sound. And it's just so abstract that there's nothing to compare it to. So it's really whether it's a pleasing tone or not, basically. Or it's not about, oh, did I hit the melody? Did I hit the note? Was I on key, off key? I'm usually pretty much on key anyway, but it's more about, did it feel good? Did it feel pleasing? Did it feel like I wanted, did it feel like a hug? Did it feel like I wanted to wake somebody up? Did it feel in those abstract terms? And it's just, I've been more able to have it match what I'm trying to express.
And that's great. Both of you said, both of you honed into when it feels good, then you know it's right. When it feels good, when you feel the resonance, when you feel it's free. That's so important because so many people sing with so much constriction, and they'll try to belt out a song, and they'll say, okay, that sounds belty, that's wonderful, feels like crap, but hey, that's what everybody wants, so I'm going to sing
Yeah.
that way anyway. Well, no,
No.
that's I don't care what the sound sounds like.
No.
It has to feel free.
Yes.
Or there's nothing satisfying about it. There's nothing satisfying with having your veins popping out and
No.
screaming, and
No.
what's satisfying about that?
I
It's
don't
not
want to
satisfying
mimic
for us
people.
listening to you, but
Yeah.
if you're feeling it free,
Yeah.
then we're going to love it, no matter what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's your authentic voice. It's not a
Yes.
mimicked version of some other person's
Right.
voice.
I
Yeah.
was a master manipulator
Mm.
when I started because I wanted it to sound a certain way.
Yeah.
And I was pretzeling myself, like my whole body, my whole physicality, my whole sound. It was like I'm trying to pretzel it into this sound that I wanted to hear. And it was hit or miss, but it was always exhausting. And when I came into this technique, all of a sudden it's so free. It's ironic because it stops mattering. It stops mattering how it felt, how it sounded,
Yeah.
when it feels so good that you're getting the truth bumps all over your body because it's like you're just this
Mhm.
resonating and
Yes.
the channel for whatever is coming through.
I 100% agree with that. And I did the same thing, trying to copy other people because I thought that that was, but it was a dead end, really. And I remember at one point, and in that journey of just literally like cry, like sobbing and crying, just wanting so badly for my voice to come through, but I didn't know how. And it was scary because you're like, well, this person sounds pretty good and everybody likes her or him or whatever, so I'm going to try and mimic that, but you can't, or I mean, I guess you could, but it's not the same.
No, it's not going to work as well. One of the things that I emphasize in all of my teaching and everything is everybody's an individual. Everybody is completely individual. Everybody starts out by saying, "Oh, I want to sound like this one," or "I'm gonna," or you sing
Oh,
along with this, that, or the other thing, and you can't help but imitate whoever. But the essence of singing is to reveal your own persona. I don't treat everybody the same. I don't try to make everybody have my sound. I
yeah.
just
Yeah,
everybody's different.
I have two things to say about that. Number one is proof in the pudding, and I wrote it down here just in case it came up, and it just did, is that you don't treat everyone the same, so much so that we discovered in one of my lessons in the last 6 months or so that for me, breathing through the nose, unlike anybody else, actually works better for me than breathing through my mouth. We do not know why. It doesn't make physiological sense, but I'll be danged if it doesn't work. And the other thing I'll say, because I've been with you forever, and one of the reasons that I knew that you were the right person for me to study with was the teacher I had before you. When I would come to their room, like stand outside their room waiting for my lesson, I never could tell who was in the room before me because everybody sounded the same.
Oh.
Like I would be like, is that this one? Is that one? I don't know. And it would come, someone would come out and I'd be like, somebody totally new. Sounds all the same. I just, my voice got destroyed there because they were trying to make it sound like these 5 girls that I don't sound anything like.
Yeah.
And I knew when I would stand outside of Donna's apartment waiting to go in for my lesson, I could tell exactly who it was in the room. I'd be like, oh, that's this one. Oh, that's that one. And they would come out and sure enough, that's who it was. And it was such a relief that I knew who was in the room because she wasn't trying to make them sound like the person before them.
Yes.
And that is so helpful. And the third and final thing I'll say about this is one of my huge pet peeves now is listening to someone sing and knowing which recording of a song they listened to make that version of the song. It makes me crazy. I'm like, oh, I see you listened to Jane Monheit's recording of that. Oh, I see you listened to Barbara Streisand's version of that. Oh, I see you listened to Britney Spears yesterday. Like, and I'm like, I know which recording you're listening to because you're just a mimic. And the reason I know is because I used to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it annoys me.
Yeah.
But I see where they're coming from. I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
we're not taught about that individual expression. We're not taught to do that individual. You are you. Your voice is you. Your voice is not this or that or the other thing. And no, you don't need to imitate all those other people. You just need to do what you feel. Do what's best for you. Be an individual.
And it makes the song more interesting too, because you get a new perspective on it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's what I with my kids, the students that come to me. Sometimes they'll come and they'll have this little twang on their voice, and you can tell it's because they've been listening to whoever, whatever, And I'll just say, no, just open your mouth and ah. You say ah is ah, yeah, and then it just comes, right? So, yeah.
Sound like you.
It sounds like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love your voice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
exactly.
Yeah.
The last question I want to ask, and then I will open it up to the two of you ladies if you have any questions for Donna, is Donna, can you explain what exactly the pure falsetto does? Because anyone who's studied with you has come into this at some point or another, or will at some point or another. Can you just explain what exactly that does?
The pure falsetto, as Cornelius developed this particular exercise, is let me precede that by saying there are 2 muscle systems that bring the vocal cords together: the arytenoid system, the cricothyroid system. The cricothyroids are the pitch regulatory muscle. This is all standard voice science. What it does is I showed the little thing. It's this little guy here, right? All it does is pull this thyroid cartilage forward and down to stretch the vocal cords. That's its only job. Everything else is the arytenoid system. They bring the cords together, they thicken them, they et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the pure falsetto is when that cricothyroid muscle is weak because a person has usurped its purpose by pushing the chest voice too aggressively, because you can make sounds in many constrictive ways and still make the sound. The way a lot of people sing higher, if their voices just don't naturally work, is their larynx will go up and up and up and up, and that's how they get higher pitches. Ah, and they'll just do this, and that chest voice will go, so it will just stretch the vocal cords up that way in a constrictive way. When it's that bad, What you need to do is get that cricothyroid muscle working. So when you do a breathy ooh, ooh, does a couple of things. It brings the vocal cords apart, and there's no part of the arytenoid system working except the holding against the pull of the cricothyroids. So by doing that breathy ooh, the cords are apart, they're getting stretched by the cricothyroid muscle with that one holding muscle back there. So all the rest of the arytenoid system is not working. So it kind of isometrically exercises that cricothyroid muscle. So when, especially if the larynx tends to want to go up as you go higher with the pitches, this is a necessary exercise to get that cricothyroid muscle to pull the thyroid cartilage forward and down so the larynx doesn't go up. Is that too complicated?
No, I don't think so. I think that's exactly, I mean, that's what's happening. So, but it's good to know what's happening, because for me, that's my favorite exercise. I really haven't done it in a really long time, but I definitely know that when it's done correctly, it works like a charm. I mean, just like, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's all I had to do, a couple of those, and it's all back in place.
Yeah, let me tell you a quick story about that. Cornelius had this wonderful singer who was a mezzo-soprano, sang at the Met for many, 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 many years. And she said, she came to him one lesson, I'll never forget. She said, you know, I've got everybody backstage at the Met going, oh, oh. They don't know why. They just know it works.
It's true. It's true.
Oh.
So fun.
The hooting. Yeah.
So ladies, I'll open it up to the two of you to ask, or all three of you actually. Donna, if you have any questions that you'd like to address too, what questions do you have that you'd like to, or topics or discussions or points before we wrap it up?
Well, I just want to say, no questions really. It's just been so wonderful to, after so long of not having a voice lesson, to be able to come and just pick it up almost where we left off, right? And feel that freedom and really connect to that such an incredible foundation that has allowed me to go for so long without a lesson and not come back to that like, oh my God, like I can't sing, I've destroyed my vocal cords or something. And it's the coming back and it's like, yeah, it's still fine, and still feel that it's like I may have, you know, certain things that I'm sure I can work on, but it's not I never went back or felt like I've lost my technique or something, like I have to start over. It's just like I'm here and I can keep moving forward. So excited.
Hannah, I'm going to ask you, since you've had lessons with Donna live and now virtually, what is for those who don't know, how do you find the experience? Do you find it similar? Do you find the same feeling? Do you find it different? How does it compare, I suppose?
Well, you know, there's something to be said about being in person, because there's, you know, Donna and I have, I love Donna, so being around her and everything, it's just a different experience. But this, I was just thinking, well, this works perfectly. So I'm in Philly, I can pick it up where I left it off, and it's going to be just fine. I don't feel like I'd be missing out on any of the technical stuff by any means. It could, you know, just more fun chit-chatting a little bit while we get into our lesson. But besides that, it just feels like there's absolutely no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, this technique works. It just works online, in live, wherever, in space. I don't know.
So we will make plans to get on the Richard Branson Galaxy Quest to go do our voice lessons in space to just prove our point. For a mere $500,000, let's go.
That's right. Like pulling a hair from a cat. That's
exactly. Heidi, you've only done virtual lessons with Donna, right?
Yes, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And what's your takeaway? Just last final comments, final
Oh,
thoughts.
I find Donna extremely intuitive. She has an amazing ear. She just hones right in, and it's just incredible. I love the work that you're doing, and the work that you're carrying on through Cornelius Reed, and it's just you have a gift, a wonderful gift, and I really appreciate your presence on this planet. Really, truly,
Thank you so
really,
much.
truly. That's just honest. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Thank you
both
so
so
much.
much for your beautiful words. This is totally for me a labor of love because I just love doing this so much.
Oh, it
Love
shows.
doing this
We
so
couldn't
much.
tell them.
Shows. Yeah, yeah.
And Nellie, as always, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart because you are one of the most amazing beings. Talk about an amazing being on this planet. You're looking at her right there.
We all find each other.
Aw.
uh, Hang on one second. I'm gonna stop recording. Actually, I'm not gonna stop recording. Hannah, you didn't think you'd get out of here without explaining what exactly happens in a sacred sound healing session. Like, I have to know everything. What is happening? Do you walk around someone? Like, do they lie down? Like, what happens?
Well, now I do it all online,
Okay.
from the comfort of your home. Usually you can lie down, but I actually recommend that you're sitting up, putting your feet flat on the ground and connecting and really grounding yourself. So I go through a process where I help people really connect to themselves. It's a process of coming back to their own sacred frequency.
Mm.
And I used to really just go through the solfeggio tones. And my favorite is 528, which is the frequency of magic and love and miracles.
Mm.
And that's my signature frequency that I work with. And I used to clear the chakras from the root chakra going all the way up. Then a few years later, I got it. No, I just have to start from the heart.
Mm.
Because once I clear the heart, then everything just flows. And lately, in the past, I guess 2 or 3 years, what I've done is I start with the heart, but then I bring the mind into the heart. I create a connection that is mind heart, where the heart is the leading energy, and it allows people to just stop questioning and thinking and self-doubt, and just connecting to their heart center. And now what I do is I literally start playing a handpan, and whatever happens in the moment, I follow the energy of the group, and usually I'll know intuitively what the group needs or certain people, and I'll start working with different people or the energy of the whole group. And it's again just clearing energy with the sound. It's pretty magical experience,
That
actually.
is wild. I love that.
Do you have a website that you can tell my listeners that they can go to if they want to?
Well, I have an Instagram. It's at Vocal Tapestry, and I'm also on Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel called Vocal Tapestry. And every week, there's a ton of programs I used to do, which I'm picking up again, a weekly program called Sound Bath Sundays.
Ooh.
Every Sunday, I'd give a talk about whatever was going on, and then I do a sound healing specifically for that subject that we were broaching that week. So there's a lot of material there if you want to go and poke around.
Wonderful. Hey,
So
you.
we'll put that in the comments below. We'll put it in the description.
Thank you.
And Heidi, where can people find you on the internet?
Um, I'm pretty quiet on the internet, but I do have I have a Facebook business page
Great.
for my singing classes, and also I'm on OutSchool, which is an online learning platform for kids.
Great. So we'll put, so if you send that to me, we'll put all of that stuff in the comments below in the video so that people can know where to find you as well. Well, with that, thank you ladies all for being here, and we will see you all again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching Donna Reed Talks Voice. If you have any questions for me about this episode, or if you'd like to join me on a future episode, please visit donnareedtv.com and click Contact.